Yeah, I actually have to set up my other camera. I have when I'm going through Streamlabs, it only lets me show one camera. So like my camera right now is on the Twitch side. But I do have two. I actually had my old camera that I used during COVID before I bought my nicer, newer streamer kind of one. I used to just point at my dog during my streams. But then like she doesn't really like to sleep in this bed as much anymore in my office. So I should Leo pointed that out. He's like, "Why don't you just set that up so that we can also have a camera for in calls so we don't just feel lonely in the Discord," which is so valid. I'll probably set that up. I know Ben has two cameras so that there's like one lesser quality one we can
Mm,
see during the podcast, and then his nicer, crispier, 2K, 4K, whatever he's rocking there,
mhm.
camera for the main thing. Micro boy. Ooh, we got some. I'm so psyched for D&D. Let's go. Let's dive right into it. You good to go, Charles?
Yes.
Awesome. Hello, 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 and welcome to
D&D.
Bonus Pod, the companion podcast to the MinMax Show. My name is Haley McLean. I'm the community manager of this lovely community known as MinMax. It's starting to get warm outside. My seasonal depression is becoming just normal depression, and that feels so good. Today, I'm joined by video editor Charles Hart. Hi, Charles.
Hello. Can I want to ask what are the qualitative that's the word. Qualitative differences for you between seasonal and regular depression?
When I go outside, I genuinely feel like this part of my brain is open and welcoming and it's like, yes, you're happy. But then like the other part that's just like normal style depression is still just like, no, but you're sad in general. But doesn't the sun feel good? Doesn't the sun feel good on
Uh-huh.
your skin? And I'm like, uh-huh. The air smells good. It just like, I don't know. It's like, it's almost like every year I forget what it feels like to be a human in the spring. And then you just remember it
Yes,
again once the weather gets nice. Like, I don't know. What about,
I get that.
is it like, in your experience, did you grow up somewhere where it was always cold in the winter and then it got warm in the summer? I know some people who live in like LA or something. It's like it's always warm. What are you talking about? But I kind of love the cold into the warm. I don't know what I'd do if I was just somewhere where it was always warm.
Yeah, no. Ohio's like especially Cincinnati is like we get full on seasons. Um
Sims 2
and
seasons.
I remember like I very much having like a spring where I was like, oh my god, I feel like the sun came out in like spring of 2022, and I was like, I feel like this is the first time I've been happy in like 6 years.
Right? I get
So
that feeling too.
like a
Especially,
deep, profound like. I don't know. In a way, I wish I could put into words better than like I've never felt this way before in my life, and I know I have, but yeah.
it's yeah, like especially during COVID, it got warm outside, but it was still like you're not allowed to do anything. There's a public park. And I remember that whole summer, it must have been the summer of 2020, probably.
Mhm.
And everyone just sat in this park. And that was our outside social time. You'd sit on a blanket 6 feet away from your friend, first time seeing them in months. And you're just like, hi. Like the sun is like the only thing you can do is just sit in the sun. God, how did we get through that? You know what's also weird is now that we're out of that COVID like lockdown phase, my brain like tries to romanticize it. And I'm like, no, that sucked. But my brain's like, remember
Yeah.
how chill it was and how you played so much Animal Crossing? I'm like, no, it was really bad. It was stressful. I was really anxious all the time. My brain's like, yeah, but your Animal Crossing save was so lit. Like
I
that just
do,
it's
I
weird.
do I do love that though. That it's like, did I like COVID or do I just really miss Animal Crossing New
Yes,
Horizons? Like
that's
this,
exactly it. And it
that's
was
just
like the
what it
fourth
was.
anniversary recently. It made me want to throw
Mhm.
up. I was like, how is it 4 years from Animal Crossing?
That is
How?
wild. Like it doesn't like if it was 4 years from 4 years from Breath of the Wild, I was like, oh my gosh, where is the sequel? 4 years from Animal Crossing, it's like, oh, I guess like they could make a new one soon, but like I like it doesn't even feel. It feels like it just happened.
Yeah, like people were complaining last year. It's like there's no more updates, and then I kind of realized like that's a bit fair. I mean, I
Yeah,
want to be upset, but I'm also like, I mean, it's 3 years after launch, and that's kind of
it's
fair. I don't know.
it's been a while. Yeah,
Yeah. Ugh, just time. I hate time. It's truly a villain. But let's jump
you
into.
you know
Oh,
you know who else hates time
who?
is Melinoe, the protagonist of Hades 2.
What a fantastic tangent. I was supposed to do a way sloppier and lazier one. It's like, speaking of games, let's talk about Hades 2. All right, so we do have to, disclaimer, we got to save this for the main pod, because Charles, a few minutes before we started this episode, was like, oh yeah, I put 12 hours into Hades 2, and oh my god, I want to pick your brain. I don't know if you have the Twitch thing open. I sprinted to my Steam Deck to download this puppy. And I cannot. As soon as we're done recording this, I'm playing this for the whole night. I cannot wait. I want to know your take
so good on Steam Deck.
Yeah,
like it's like not like I have. Maybe this is gonna be dramatic. I've maybe never played a game that's run as smoothly on Steam Deck than Hades 2.
To hear it, because like, I'm not going to be on the pod this week. You are, so I can talk about my experience with Hades 2 really quickly. I played Hades this year for the first time because I know I've always wanted to play Hades. I know I'd like it. It looks amazing. The art's amazing. The characters are awesome. I'm like, the gameplay loop looks insane. Everyone talks about it years later, how it's like one of the best indie games ever made. I'm like, I need to play Hades 2. Started playing it, played it every night in bed for I don't even know how many hours. I'd be curious to see how many hours I have on this game on here. The best Steam Deck game. I was like, this is just perfect. Just little runs, one more run. It's just the titular one more X kind of game. And then the fact that I was kind of on the fence about, do I want to jump into early access? Do I kind of want to give it some breathing room? Maybe go back and play like Pyre or something and then join it a little bit later, but I just really want to play it right. I'm just too excited. I want to play it right now.
Hades 2 early access has more locations than Hades 1 base game.
Oh, my god.
The early access for this game, it is wild to me that it's like, I know they've said the stuff they're going to add, and I know there's like maybe 2 characters that still have like placeholder art. But the amount of time I've been playing it, it has like not really given any indication to me that this game's not done, which is like wild.
Yeah. So I'm interested how there's some people, like even in the chat right now, are saying I'm going to wait till 1.0. Too many games as it is. That's so valid. And I'd be curious to hear the percentage. Like if Ben did a poll on Twitter, like, are you going to wait till the full release, or are you going to play Hades 2 now? Because I honestly don't know what people would pick. Like, yeah, that's a good question, Nico. Did you play early access Hades when it came out, Charles? Like back the first Hades?
I didn't even really know about it. That was a big deal, and then it came to Switch, and that's when I played it.
Okay, that makes sense. Also a good Switch game, but
yes, great Switch game.
So yeah, Charles is flying to Minneapolis this week. Exciting! And so he's going to be in studio for the MinMax show this week. And yeah, I messaged Ben like right before Bonus Pod because it's May 6th right now, and they only just released that it's in early access today, like 3 hours ago or something. So I was like, oh, we could talk about that. And then yeah, you messaged me like, I actually have 12 hours in the game. I was like, that's so juicy. That is such juicy content. Should I squander it for Bonus Pod? I'd rather save it for the main pod. I think that'd be better. So we'll save it for that pod. But that's so exciting.
I'm excited to talk about it also.
And also the Game Informer's cover story, which that art is freaking amazing, by the way. That is like one of my favorite covers Game Informer's ever done right away.
It's wild. It's that. So this, not to go too hard plugging Game Informer, but you can go subscribe to Game Informer magazine. You'll save me in my career. Not that we're like in jeopardy. Just it's good for Game
It's good for business. Just go subscribe.
Yeah, it's good for business. It's Hades 2 cover. Marcus and Alex got to play the early access like for a while and then talk to the developers. And so it's a really interesting thing of like, we knew people would have the game in early access by the time the issue launched. So it shifts from it being like a kind of preview type angle where it's like, this is what to expect from the game. And instead of that, it's more of a like the making of angle where they're like getting all these exclusive interviews with the developers of like, how did you do this? What was the process with that? So that's really cool, really interesting of like, they played the game and then asked questions about the stuff they played as opposed to like, here's an hour or a few hours of demo and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And then like, there's other stuff in here, but in the, the theme of this, Editor-in-chief Matt Miller went to Wizards of the Coast and got to like look at the new edition of Dungeons and Dragons,
Oh,
which is melting my brain. It's the
you couldn't hide the
two most
suitcase for that
Charles.
trip. Like, come on, you should have gone to that.
I was like trying so hard to not be annoying. I'm like, please, if they got like extra books and they just like don't know what to do with them, like I'll take them. Or like,
Yeah.
if you get really sick or something, you just need someone else to go, like that'd be cool. I could go.
Yeah.
But yeah, just those two stories are both like I've never been more jealous of other people's getting to do stuff. But I got to read it, so that's cool.
That's very cool. Yeah, so I just finished watching today your episode 0. So, for the D&D campaign that MinMax is doing. So there was a new show, Overflow Target, that y'all hit. Shout out to MinMax community. And that caused an in-person D&D campaign to launch. It's a one-shotter episode. Fun little quick in, quick out campaign that Charles is running as a DM. And there's an episode 0 clip on MinMax's channel right now you can go listen to where... Oh, Patreon goal. Thank you, Rich. And what did I say? Overshow? That's not an overshow flow, no. And I have never felt more FOMO in my life than watching that episode 0.
You know,
I would
the reason
love to be a part of it.
The reason I even offered it is because I edited the GDC video.
Yeah.
We're like, Haley, I think is this the second time we've talked? Have we only ever talked on bonus pods before?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
And then, DMs.
Yeah, well, and it's weird because I have spent more time editing video of you watching you do stuff than I have actually in conversation with you. But in that you mentioned that you wanted to play D&D, and I was like, oh, we should do that. And then I messaged Ben, and I was like, hey, we should play D&D. And he was like, oh, well, we have someone else and we want to do it in person. And in my mind, I was like, oh, okay, well then I'm not even on the table.
Yeah.
And then found out the other person, like, they were like, it's easier to do Charles, and then also I was going to get flown out there. And I was like, that's so cool. That's so great. So yeah, I'm excited.
It definitely makes sense to do it in person. That kind of stuff is like, oh, it lends so well to being in the room with people. Like when you do DMing, are you often in person? Is it always in person? After like in a post-COVID world, is it more chill to be, on Discord calls and stuff like that, playing your games, or do people still want to meet in person?
So my group is my partner and then also my best friend from high school and his wife. So it's like the four of us that usually play.
What a good crew.
And in COVID also, it was like COVID started in the spring, and then in the fall I had to go back to like school. I was still in college.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was me, girlfriend, those two, and then my girlfriend's roommate. The 5 of us were D&D. Our bubble was just our D&D group, basically.
Nice.
So I've for like all of my long-term sessions or campaigns, I've only ever done in-person stuff. I played over Zoom, I guess only once. So it is different. And I think my main thing I personally couldn't give up is I just like rolling the dice physically myself.
That's so fair. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. You can do it. You can do it over distance, and I think there's some like actual play groups that do it very effectively. But it is definitely at the very least to like read the other people in the room easier when you're in the same space.
Well, even just like y'all's chemistry in that session 0 was like how much fun y'all were having, because it's definitely going to have a comedy angle. Like I know some D&D sessions are very like min-maxing, so to speak. It's like, no, let's try to beat this. It's a hard campaign. The DM knows that they want to challenge, and it's not so much silliness. It's more about getting to that end goal. But I mean, obviously it lends itself that y'all are fun and funny, and you're all making jokes even already, making up your characters. Like Sarah's character is a centaur that got stuck in a horse trap or something. Like what the hell?
She fell in a hole, I guess.
Yeah, there's Ben is really scared of holes because his wife died in one, so he has feather fall in his arsenal of spells or cantrips or whatever. It's like, that's amazing.
What was so interesting to me, so like when I'm DMing Like I don't try to be funny, or I guess a better way to put it is like I don't usually put comedy in like the world building of it. I think
Okay.
it just comes to a uh it just comes naturally to me to like no, this character is going to be funny, or it'll be funny if I do this or whatever. Like I do try to
Yeah.
make things funny, but it's more of like a subconscious thing. And what surprised me about this session was how immediately it was like like Leo was like, my character's on a quest to see the world's largest rubber band ball. And I was like, okay, this is
You're
gonna.
like, that's the vibe. Noted.
And I don't know if he processed at the time how like I as a DM am like that has such huge world building implications that like I can't not make that a pivotal part of the story. Like
Yeah.
the fact that rubber bands exist. How are rubber bands made? How have enough rubber bands been brought into one space? And then the fact that that has become an attraction to me is like that's a town. That's like all the pieces you need to like create a space.
Yeah.
It's just because that was a throwaway joke, but it's gonna be a thing.
Oh, that's amazing. That's such a good mix of it's just improv comedy playing pretend with your friends. That's just like the best time ever. But then I also like how you're there and you're like the structured rule setter so that like things are more fun when there's rules. Like who wants to play Monopoly and then money doesn't matter? Like no one. You would just stop playing. So you need Charles there and your DM there to reel stuff in so when Ben tries to, use the wrong spell to do the wrong thing, you can go fail. And then everyone has to
Yeah,
work on it. That's why I'm so attracted to D&D is because growing up, my sister and I just played mad pretend. Like we were playing
mm.
pretend every 10 seconds. That's why I love that new show Bluey that's like everyone loves.
Bluey rocks,
It's
dude.
rocks because it's just children playing pretend and really encouraging that kind of creative outlet of just like play. And D&D is truly just play that adults get to do. And we're just like all chill about it and we like accept it. And I'm like, hell yeah, because I miss playing pretend. It's so fun. That's like low key why Leo and I are doing a Red Dead stream every week, role playing in the Red Dead
Yes.
servers, because we're just playing pretend. Like it's just fun. And I think truly it's this facet of your brain that you don't get to use that much as an adult. So of course people seek it out and it's this fun outlet. So that's why I've always been really attracted to it. And I actually personally have been attracted to like the DM role in
Oh yeah.
specifics. Like I would really like to learn, hence why I wanted to chat with you today, amongst other things. But I'm really curious about the DM role because as I was listening to that session 0 with you, Ben, Sarah, and Leo, I was like trying to almost take mental notes on how you were approaching things, like how you were coaxing it out of them, right? It's very much as like they'll come to the table with different levels of experience. Like obviously Sarah has a massive amount of experience, Ben doesn't, so you have to like adjust things accordingly. Some people might want their character to have like no faults, and you have to kind of convince them no having faults is part of the fun. Like you can't just be the hottest, rippedest, strongest person in the land like
which,
that.
which was not an issue with these three. I thought it was so funny. They were each like, Ben's like, I'm a terrible actor, and Sarah's like, and I'm so stupid that I think he's a good actor. Like they built in these like hilarious character flaws immediately, and I thought that was really
And
good.
you need that, right? Because otherwise, like who wants to play a campaign where all 4 people are the hottest and best and everything? It's like so boring.
Yeah.
You need faults. Otherwise, that's literally every piece of media ever made that's good has like the characters have a bunch of faults. So yeah, I noticed that came very natural, but like just in general. So I have a friend group, similar energy to you. Like I have my partner, and then I have my best friends since I've been 13 years old, and then like a bunch of other friends that I've been friends with since high school. And I think they play D&D with me, but they need me to be the organizer. Like if I took on the mental load and effort of being the one to do all the research, learn about how all this goes, dive deep into it. And I really am happy I played Baldur's Gate so much last year because now I feel like I know all the
Oh yeah.
buzzwords, and I like even when you were explaining what a cantrip was and you were like listening to them, I was like, I know that one, I know that one. Oh yeah, hell yeah, Mage Hand, I already know it. Like it's just like now I feel like I have a bit of a little creaky foundation that if I go and just nerd out and read a bunch of stuff, I could probably start building up a campaign. But you hearing that with someone with so much experience, do you have some like tips and tricks for me to convince them to play? Because I'm gonna have to pitch this like I'm going up to
Oh, okay.
the 50th floor of a corporate building and pitching a new friend group idea. Be like, y'all in?
Mhm.
And I think they would be, but I need to come prepared.
Definitely the biggest hurdle of convincing people to play D&D is like the character building portion, I think.
Just the starting bit.
Um, because it's like it's so mechanical, like it's literally mostly mechanics in the sense of like it's just the numbers, and I think that's the point where it's easiest to get overwhelmed when you're like, especially when you've never played before, right? And you're like, I guess I'll put a 15 in strength, but I don't really have a concept for what that means, or I don't know where to put my proficiencies or whatever. So I think the most you can understand that and help people through that process, I think like in terms of the process of it all, that's always been like the most difficult thing for my group, anyways. But so have you played it all before?
No,
Oh, that's so great.
never once in person. Like, no, I say in person like I do it online, but no, like Baldur's Gate is truly my
Yeah.
first introduction to proper D&D Wizard of the Coast. Like I and what's fun is like I have all this experience doing other imaginative crap. Like when I used to be a camp counselor, the kids at nighttime would all sit around me and I would just do choose your own adventure off the cuff stuff and I would just make it up on the spot,
Whoa.
which is like
Yeah.
that's DMing, right? Like it's truly like,
Yeah.
so they always acted like they thought that I had everything pre-planned, but I would just make it up. So it'd be like 20 children around me. The other counselors are in bed because they're like they don't want to deal with the kids anymore, but I like thought they were cute. And I was like, sure, let's play it. I forget what we called it. We called it just like choose a adventure time or something, and they wanted to do it every night, and I would just sit there and just be like, to the left is a haunted mansion, to the right is a town, like which way do you want to go? And they had to all 50-50, like 51% of the group had to choose one, and then I just did that for hours all summer, like, and I feel like those skills I want to use them again. I found that very weirdly rewarding and fun, and that's just DMing, right?
Yeah, yeah. The like I that's like a really cool story, and I think there's a thing of like when you watch D&D or like you hear about D&D for the first time, a lot of people I've seen will like look at that and be like, I don't know how anyone could be a DM. That feels so stressful. And then there's like another percent of people, which is like what I was when I was looking at it for the first time, of like, all I want to do is DM. Like I just immediately I was like, that's the coolest thing. So hearing you tell that story is like very relatable, and you would be good at it. I just feel very confident in that.
I'd be worried in the moment though. I would just be, I guess, as much as I could have those improvisational things going for me, someone might just be like, "Does that work?" And I'd be like, "Duh," and like have to open my book and do like I'm worried about that aspect of it. I guess like not knowing enough and messing up the campaign, and someone being like, "Well, wait, I just looked something up, and like 3 hours ago you said we couldn't, and we could have, and that would have, I don't know, bogging it down, not knowing the rules good enough."
I definitely think, especially if you're playing with people that haven't played before, then like that's not really going to be a huge thing.
Yeah.
My biggest issue is when I tried to make up a rule, like it was just when I was early enough in DMing and I like made up a magic item and I just made it busted. Like there's some things you only get a feel for once you've like played enough. I think also like you get used to like the people you're playing with and you can start like getting an idea of the things they're gonna do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to I want to find like a good starting point. So when I am playing with my table, so the first time I played, I played I believe it's called the Essentials Kit, and it's got like a white dragon on the cover, and it's the adventure inside is like the tale of the Dragon of Icespire Peak. That's what it's called.
Okay.
And it's like this little contained narrative, and it gives you a bunch of. It's a very modular adventure, so they start in like a town, and then there are little things of like if they go here for this adventure, they can do this. If they go here for this, they can do that. So it's got like little chunks, and they get to choose where to go. So if you have an idea of what they're going to do in each of those areas, you can do that. Okay. And I basically started with that, and then all the characters had their own backstories, and then I kind of like wove it into like a bigger story with like more important characters and stuff. And that was that was like a 4 or 5 month thing. That was a good time for me to like learn kind of the pacing of it and like how much I needed to prepare and like what the right direction to prepare stuff in was.
Mm-hmm.
The first session we ever did, the town that you start in is called Phandalin, and the shopkeeper or the tavern keeper is a guy named Toblin Stonehill. And in my head, I was like, Toblin's gonna be like the cheeriest, nicest dude, and everyone's gonna love him. And he's gonna ask for help getting his cat back because his cat got lost. And so they walk in, and I do my Toblin Stonehill voice. I'm like, "Hello, my name is Toblin Stonehill, and welcome to my inn." And immediately my partner goes, "Ugh." And she and her roommate are immediately like, "This guy's the worst. He sucks so much." And I was like, "No, wait, I'm a really nice guy. Do you want some bread?" And then they were like, "No, we don't want your bread." And then they like stole rolls from him in like his kitchen. The whole point of that being like, even my very first thing, I was expecting them to react a certain way, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a thing about being a DM is understanding you can't. Not only can you not predict the players, you can't predict the points at which you won't be able to predict them.
Yeah.
So being just prepared to pivot quickly enough, I think, is good.
What if so for example, with the campaign book route, what if they pivot so hard that we start going away from my safety net campaign book? Like, what if I'm like, oh, here are the options, and then they just barrel their way out of all the preset lineup things? Like, does that happen often to you, and you just have to start completely improving your session in the moment?
I think what's important there is making sure all of the characters' goals are lining up in a way that makes sense. So like in this story, everyone had a reason they wanted to kill this dragon. So it wouldn't really make sense for them to like leave the map area because they would want to kill the dragon. And like yeah, for the most part, that wasn't really a thing. That's definitely a backstory thing. Like when we were, and I think also giving a specific thing to tie all the backstories together. Because if you're just like come up with a backstory and then we'll come up with it in the session of what your guys are doing and what you want to know, it's a lot better to be like, no, let's sit down and be like, why are you guys friends? Why are you guys staying together? And make that like a concrete feature of the game, so it doesn't become like a, oh, well, if you guys are going here, I'm going to go off and do my own thing, because like that's against the game. Like that's against the spirit of what you're doing with the game.
And it would also kind of be like a faux pas for the DM to be like, you're not allowed to, because it's,
yes.
But like also screw off. Don't tangent and go over there. Like obviously stick with your group. Yeah. And I think my friends would be chill enough to know like you can't split up. Like you guys, come on, enough. But I noticed that during your session 0, how I liked that, how they each had a reason for going to... Can you remind me the name of the town that sounded like a swear word?
Gunch?
Gunch.
Gunch.
They all had a reason to go to Gunch, and it was all due, again, to one of their different faults. Like, either they're stupid, or they just needed to go there to, like, pay someone back who didn't even help them that much. And I was like, oh, of course. Like, that makes so much sense. Like, instead of hoping that kind of thing, it's almost going to the root of a story and making sure the kernel is tied somewhere and then just letting it go from there. And I never thought about that before until I watched that session 0.
Yeah, a lot of stuff that I think is spontaneous, or like you want I think a lot of times if you know the shape of the story you're trying to tell, you can establish that and be upfront with that and let all the details come in. Yeah. Like with the dice. So like another example of that is like if you have 2 players at the table and like maybe they're married in real life and they want to do like a romance arc, like there's no reason to at the start of the campaign be like, oh, and we want to do a romance arc. It's like, cool. Then when you do like enemies to lovers or whatever, you guys are on the same page and can like react to the story beats accordingly. And also that like the real life person isn't mad at you because you're like, we're doing this together. We knew this was going to be a romance the whole time. So yeah, I think that's definitely in the same way that you're like, yeah, this is an adventure about killing a dragon. It's like, it's not a spoiler to say you want to kill the dragon, but like the way that you go about doing that is going to be different every time.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Another thing with my players specifically that I picked up is I'm a big fan of the show Dimension 20. It's an actual play show on Dropout. I've also watched Critical Role before. The podcast that got me into Dungeons and Dragons was the Adventure Zone. And so I really used to these like high acting, high performance games of D&D,
Mm-hmm.
where people had like very strong sense of character and they would want to like that would drive everything because they knew exactly who their characters were. And then I was playing with my friends and I was like, oh, that's right. You guys aren't like writers and actors, and that's
Matt
fine.
Mercer
That's
or
normal.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not Matt Mercer. And I would set up these like kind of dramatic moments for their characters, and they wouldn't be like comfortable enough role playing it. So it would be kind of like awkward. And I was like, well, I don't want to make it awkward for them. Like, I don't want them to feel pressured into situation. So the second campaign I did, it started March of 2021 and ended like last June.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like 2.5 years,
Wow.
or a little less than 2.5 years. That one I made it a lot more like segmented, and I made it very like mechanics based. So the whole thing was that they were called the Planewalkers, and there's like a planar system in D&D, like the multiverse, and I just kind of took the idea of that and then I plucked them all off and I basically made them video game worlds. And it's very derivative because I don't know, it's my home game, who cares? But then it was like, okay, you guys are going to the plane of air. This is going to be sky pirates. So I made like pirate ship mechanics, and then they all did like they had a ship that they would command when they were fighting people. When they went to the plane of shadow, I made that like a murder mystery with a bunch of like skeleton people, and that
Fun.
was fun.
That sounds awesome.
So that was like a fun way for me to approach that, because I knew they were going in like a linear path because they weren't super interested in like character driven exploration or anything. And then also I could be like, even if your characters, your character work isn't what you're interested in, it's like, I know that you'll have fun doing a murder mystery. I know you'll have fun doing like a Hunger Games spinoff or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it, is also like, once you're playing with the players, understanding the kind of stuff they like and then catering to that, as opposed to being like, this is my idea for a campaign and everyone's going to be on board, because it's usually not the case.
Yeah, gotcha. Like that's what else. Another thing I was curious about is like like twinkling in the combat. It's like, how much combat's too much combat? Do you really want? Should there every session have at least one fight, or is it fine to just have a whole session where people are just chilling in a tavern and like hanging out? Like, what's the vibe? And that just completely depends on your players, or what do you think?
Yeah, I also like, with combat wise, I like to plan that out in advance. The way I do at home also, I use like a physical grid, but I just have these like dry erase 1-inch grid squares. And I have like little white cardboard pieces I cut out into 1-inch squares, and then I just like draw the monsters on them and then put them on the grid.
Oh, fun.
And then when we're doing like long-term stuff, my players will go on like Hero Forge, where you can like design a 3D printed mini and have it like shipped to you, or if you have a 3D printer, you can print it yourself. But for like most characters, we just take a little piece of cardboard and just like draw yourself on them, so then we're on the map.
Wow.
But because of that, I want like the maps to be like kind of interesting, or at least the objectives of the combat to be kind of interesting. So there's usually like, I don't know, it varies by the session, but in like an arc of ours, which would usually be like 7 sessions, there would be like maybe 4 combat encounters.
Okay.
But again, it varied based on like the vibe I was going for. But I don't know. I'm definitely a less is more with combat kind of guy.
And they're just
Not that
getting
I want.
XP through like side mission. Like if they had helped the guy at the tavern who you loved find his cat, they would have got XP that way instead.
Well, I do. I usually do milestone leveling, which is where just when you get to a certain story point, it's like, you guys saved the person, everyone levels up.
Okay, that's so much easier.
Yeah, it's a lot less work to track.
Because like, how would you even track that? Is the other thing. Like every fireball, are you doing math?
Someone in the Twitch chat said, "Can we dub the crew the Gunch Bunch?" I had thought of that name, and I didn't want to force it on them, but I did like that, so I would hope to do that.
That's perfect.
Anyways, yeah. Do you have any other like specific questions? I could just rant about being a DM, but
and like so when you are in combat, how much math you doing? How behind that little mat where you're hiding and scribbling, are you doing a lot of math? Is a lot of math?
So I track initiative on like a Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
So you just write everyone's names and then like their initiative number, and then I just sort by the value there. So I get that in order. And then I am doing math, but it's never like it's honestly easier for me to do D&D math than normal math. Like if someone was like, Charles, add 4 and 5 and 1 and 1 and 2 and 6 and 9, and I'd be like, I can't do that. But if someone was like, Charles, add 68, and then I rolled them, I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. Like that for some reason a lot easier for me to comprehend.
Yeah.
But especially like it's funny because you'll be starting at a lower level if you're pitching a campaign, and the numbers start low and just slowly get higher. So I think it'll be
myself up to it.
Yeah, it'll be easy curve.
Yeah. And then the other thing I was curious about is like, so you have like that 2.5 year campaign. Y'all are invested.
Mm-hmm.
You've put tons and chunks of time. What if someone died? Like, how do you handle that as a DM? Like if behind the scenes you're like, ooh, they technically died, do you sometimes fudge the numbers and you're like, you barely lived? Like maybe that's a magician telling his secrets. But do you know what I mean? Like it would just suck if you were on year 2 and someone died. That would just blow.
That did happen. So here's the thing. I kept being like, another thing that's really hard to balance, and I have no advice for this, you just have to get a feel for it, is like challenge rating for like an encounter.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's such a messy system. It's kind of hard to get a handle on. And anytime I was like, the numbers say this should be an impossible fight, my players never had a problem with it. So that was always a thing that like, I don't know. I kept trying to kill them and it would never come close. So I finally had this thing. This campaign, the main villains were mind flayers. And mind flayers have this ability where they can stun you, and then they have an ability where if they hit you, they grapple you, right? So there's like a bunch of different things. So if they stun you and then they grapple you, then they get advantage on hitting you, and they might. I don't know if this is true or not, but no, they're not paralyzed or stunned. Anyways, the whole thing is that if they get you with this attack once they're actually grabbing you, they do 10d10 damage, which is so much damage at most levels. And they eat your brains. And the reason that's significant is because the spell Revivify, which is like the easiest reviving spell people would have access to, it doesn't work if you're missing body parts.
Oh.
So if these mind flayers get to you and they eat your brains, you can't be revivified because you're missing a vital part of your body. But this had never, they had never let like the mind flayers like get them so far. And there was this final thing where they were going to their base and they were like unsuspecting and they got totally ambushed. And it could have been like a player wipe, but I had one of the characters, like a NPC. I said that she had the teleport spell, which can teleport 8 people, and there was solidly 9 people in this room, and she was like, I'm gonna teleport you guys all away, and one of my players was like, no, teleport yourself away, I'll stay. And I was like, oh no. And I kind of chickened out. I effectively killed her character, but what I did was I had the mind flayers capture her because her character had like some psychic powers that I said they would want to study. Yeah. And what I did was I then when she made a new character, it made the players hate these villains so much because they had like captured their friend that they had known for all this time. Okay. So it turned it into like a narrative reward eventually, and they did end up getting her back, and then she had to play 2 characters at once. But that was like the last session basically.
Yeah.
All this to say, I could have made that story a lot shorter.
No, I love it. That's what's D&D is fun. Like the anecdotes, it sounds like a movie you're telling me about or something.
It's just like there can be other consequences other than death. Like they don't literally have to die. I also took that from Brandon Lee Mulligan is the DM of Dimension 20, which I mentioned is a favorite show of mine. He has a bit he mentions a lot of in one of his like years long home games. Basically, everyone died except for this one character, and they all like the highest level. And they didn't die. Like one of them was banished to the astral plane. One of them was turned to stone. One of them, I don't remember exactly what happened, but they were all in these like effective states of dying, and this one maximum level character got away. And they had everyone else re-roll new characters. So it was just like this Gandalf with the hobbits, basically, of this one guy that was way stronger than everyone else, and then all these younger people trying to like save their old friends and stuff.
That's fun.
So there's a lot of ways that you can take that like ultimate defeat and then turn it into something good. But also if you're, I don't know how much like homebrew you would be doing versus like a prepared module. When I'm doing homebrew stuff, I had a hard time like accidentally killing them. I imagine with modules, it's a little easier for them to like run into an encounter that they're not ready for.
Mm-hmm. No, I like hearing that because that kind of circles back to the whole like rules make it more fun thing. Because if they all had lived, they wouldn't have had the fun little Gandalf Hobbit side story.
Yes.
And what a refreshing, fun campaign that must have been. Like that's so unique. The fact that you're thinking of that. How many years ago did you watch that campaign? It's just like still sticks.
Oh, and that wasn't even that was just a story he told on a different
Oh, it wasn't
podcast.
even a campaign
like,
you watched.
Yeah, I just remember that anecdote well enough. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, see that's what really attracts me is that kind of improvisation fun. Like that sounds really appealing to me. And I think of my friend group, I'd have to be the one that takes on the brunt load. The mental effort, the mental load of the DM. Is it an underappreciated role? Do you feel underappreciated or do you feel appreciated?
I feel appreciated. I think also definitely at my table, they all like playing D&D, but I'm the one that's always like, you guys want to play D&D again this week? Like we hang out more often than we play D&D. And if I had my way, we would just only ever play D&D.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They appreciate me. They also, when we got to the end of this campaign, they were like, Charles, thanks for this. Thanks for writing all that. And I was like, I don't really write it. I like set up the pieces. I think that's a thing you definitely expressed understanding of, but I think some people get stressed about like, how do I set up all these like plot hooks and compelling stuff? And it's like, you're really like, you're putting pieces up there and then you're seeing how people are going to knock them out. I think it's as much game design as it is like narrative writing.
Yeah. That makes sense. What was the other question I had? And your pro voices, which I like. I think I'd be pro voice. Leo mentioned on the session 0, it's like, what voices are nice because then you never have to say, my character says, you could just be like, rah, 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 rah. Everyone knows what's going on.
Was that what was that a slime?
That was like maybe like an orc or like a half orc barbarian.
Okay, yeah.
Low intelligence. Yeah, I'm so grateful for Baldur's Gate 3 because this of my whole life wanting to play D&D, I finally feel like maybe I could do it because I did the effort of learning Baldur's Gate 3 stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely going to be a thing of. I think it used to be like when people started playing, it's like, have you seen Critical Role or like a show like that before? And now it's just, have you played Baldur's Gate 3? You have? Great, you get it. You get the vast majority of the mechanics.
Yeah. Sarah and I were talking about that. It's just like, is it going to be, do the cool Sarah Pozorskis of the world who know so much about D&D, it's like, and I come in and I'm like, I once played Baldur's Gate. I'm going to start a campaign. It's like, what a noob. Like, it's just like, they're the new, like, faker kids coming into the scene to be a part of this and not know as much. But, yeah.
I think that's also a perception. That was something Ben was kind of worried about, of, like, the idea that like he didn't know enough and that was going to be embarrassing. That I think like in the actual D&D space, it's not nearly as like, I don't know. I think some people are intense, but I think that's definitely more of a yesteryear thing of like before 5th edition, where it was people were a lot more intense about the game. Whereas now I think the storytelling aspect is such a big deal that like in a lot of cases the mechanics like take a back seat almost.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so surprised that Ben thinks he's gonna be bad at it, because
I was raised. He'll be fine.
He'll be totally fine. He was, even if you watch like listening to that session, he was coming up with so much fun little spunky backstory stuff. I was like, that's literally it. That's all you need to do is just be spunky and have fun. Like the Featherfall thing, I was like, that's genius. Of course he would have Featherfall. His wife fell in a hole and died. Like that makes so much sense. That's perfect.
it was also like, yeah, I don't know if I'll be good at this. And then we're talking about backstories, and he was like, I guess I could be a failed actor with 7 kids who puts on shows at the community center for his one community in the woods.
Called
And I'm like, that's the
the
best
Art
idea I've ever heard.
Centaur or something. I was like, that's
Yeah,
freaking genius.
a
Hello.
community centaur. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the kids might not even be his kids. That was kind of up in the air. It might have just been kids who hung out near the theater, which I like.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
what I was asking.
kind of like I don't know if that's ambiguous or not. Like that's such a great backstory. If I came to it, I'd be like, I'm I don't know, a druid and I like animals, and like he was already doing so much more than most people would do coming to a thing. And I like that the community really wants
Yeah.
him to be a gnome. Where did that come from?
Yeah, I don't know why. Does he have gnome energy?
No, I don't think so. What
He
kind of
doesn't,
energy does he have?
He doesn't not have gnome energy, I will say. Like none of my players have ever looked at the gnome species and been like, I want to be that.
Yeah.
Something about Ben being so willing to do it was like really interesting to me.
Yeah. Is this a read to say that Ben has human energy in the world of D&D?
That is
sounds
really
like a
that's
read.
a really funny thing to say to someone. What kind of energy do you think you have? What was your Baldur's Gate 3 character?
I was a tiefling druid, which I thought was kind of fun. So like I had like a headcanon of like she feels guilty for like her fire abilities killing grass, and like she, whenever she picks up a flower, she finds like burns it, she'll like make a new one. Like that kind of I was like that, even though that
Mhm.
wasn't part of Baldur's Gate. I was like, I kind of like that. It's like she's really powerful and has all these infernal hellish rebuke styled abilities that make her a badass, but then on the other hand she's also just like talking to squirrels. She's like, hi, and like just kind of has a cute side as well. So I had fun
My
with her.
partner's first character was a tiefling druid. So that was like
Oh
her,
really?
yeah, a similar vibe where she was like, I don't know why more people don't do this. It's such like a fun they're like opposites.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's kind of a fault, sort of like building in a fault in of itself. Is like she's constantly in this cycle of damage and upkeep. It's like, oh, sorry, and then fixing it, and like, oh, sorry, and fixing it again. Like I thought that was appealing. And then I truly thought the start of Baldur's Gate wrote the Grove to be whatever 2 things you picked, because it was a tiefling druid
that's
fight.
so funny, dude.
And I was like, wow,
Yeah.
they like customize it so that it's so, because they were saying all this really unique stuff to me, like, you of all people will be able to fix this because you know us both equally or something. I was like, wow, what an amazing game. And then like I was talking to Sarah, she's like, yeah, the tiefling druid thing. I was like, I just randomly picked the 2 things that are fighting in the first like a couple hours of this game. That's crazy.
That's so wild.
What did you pick for Baldur's Gate 3 for your main character you played as? I'm curious.
I was a half elf. I think
Nice.
probably because I'm biracial in real life is where I think it's interesting to have a like balancing of 2 cultures in a fantasy world.
Yeah.
Also in the way that like the fact that there's conversation between these 2 things makes you understand both of them better. Like as if I was just an elf, then I'd have one thing, but because I'm like half elf, half human, is like what do they each think about each other?
Yeah.
I've also, the biggest downside of being a DM is you don't have like I haven't had a long-term character out
Yeah.
of like Baldur's Gate 3. But I think I would be half elf something. In that game I was a half elf cleric named Orville. And I was a knowledge cleric.
Nice.
Uh,
That's fun.
But the closest I had to in our last campaign, just also as a DM, like you just kind of pick favorite characters. There was one guy, so I mentioned Toblin Stonehill, who had the annoying voice, and they were like
Toblin, of
immediately
course.
like they were immediately like, I don't like this guy, I don't want anything to do with him. And I was like, geez, okay, I guess you don't like him. I tried to make that version for this other game because I wanted to put them in a scenario. It was basically like this guy, this elf, his name is Sigmund. My partner really hates Sigmund Freud, so I named him Sigmund, and I gave him like a goofy German accent.
Love it.
And my whole thing was that he was like on the run from this queen, and that she was like, either you guys can fight for his safety, or you can just give him to me and I'll execute him. And I wanted it to be like, I wanted them to want to get rid of him.
Yeah.
but the magic healing power of D&D, they were like, no, we like this guy now. And then he was like years and years of like their ally in the campaign. That was like
Really? That's awesome.
Mhm.
And you could have never anticipated that. You
No,
specifically wrote it so that he would get tossed away.
yeah, I had just watched like Lost for the first time,
Yeah.
or like I started Lost for the first time. And so I had them dropped in this wilderness, and I wanted a bunch of like quick expendable characters. Like, yeah, these will die off really quick, and that'll be like, this is like a scary new campaign where people will die. And instead, they didn't die, and then I just had now I'm voicing Sigmund for a very long time.
You must have the accent down, Pat. You just pulled that out of nowhere. Perfect.
Oh, he's so nervous about so many things. Oh gosh.
Did he have an arc where maybe you sort of designed him so that he was annoying, so your partner hated him, but then maybe he came around and became more of a lovable scamp?
Part of what happened was he was really goofy, but the kids started to really like him. So he kind of got like a goofy preschool teacher thing going on of like, I don't know, it's a baby. Is he on my head? Oh no. And that was like where he found his niche basically.
That's so fun. Oh, I would love to do a campaign with you. You sound like you'd be such a good DM. But someone in the chat pointed out that maybe during the charity live stream we could have a bit of that be D&D. That'd be fun. So maybe there'll be more of D&D on MinMax in the future, but I cannot wait to listen to y'all's campaign. I'm so excited.
I'm all for more D&D.
Yeah.
Another thing I haven't plugged yet, but I wanted to mention is we did on the Discord and the announcements channel, there's a Google form you can fill out to submit names. We have gotten such weird names so far, and I'm very excited. I want to tell you what they are, but I want it to be a surprise when I roll it, when we're actually doing it. But we have, I'll take as many names. I would like to get 100 in each category, just because that's like a nice, clean
that's awesome
table. But yeah, some people.
You're already thinking of certain ones, I can tell.
It just goes back and forth between like Mirrowina Frostwing, and I'm like, oh, that would be a really cool.
Oh, I can picture them. Yeah, they look cool as hell.
And then like Arby's, and I'm like, oh great, Arby's. They're like toes, like toes.
Oh,
now I gotta.
Does that not just get your creative juices flowing like crazy? If you hear an NPC
great.
named Toes, like, oh my god, I want to flesh that out and just make him a titular character in the campaign. He just is the most important guy in the world. Like, what is he about? What's his backstory? What are his motives? Who is Toes?
One of the like side effects of DMing all the time is you start watching like movies and shows and like thinking about it in DM terms.
Really?
But the example of that, there's a character I think in Korra, Legend of Korra, named Two-Toed Ping. And I kept being like, man, I wish I'd come up with Two-Toed Ping. That'd be such a good D&D name. Two-Toed Ping, you kidding me? Wow.
That's great. The whole Avatar world. Do you ever dabble in, like, you know how there's sci-fi campaigns, or I guess because you were saying you did like a freaking murder mystery in space, like that's kind of not very magic realm or whatever, the Forgotten Realm energy. That's cool.
It was so that on the note of Avatar specifically, we finished that campaign, and then I was like, there's a lot of like tabletop RPGs out there, and we've just been playing D&D because it's the first one I knew, but I was like, maybe we should try one of these other ones. So we actually did just finish like an Avatar specific RPG called Avatar Legends.
Cool.
And we made it up there. We had an Earthbender, a Swampbender, and an Airbender. And so we played that game, and that was fun. I didn't like it as much as D&D, but I think it was interesting to play and run that game compared to D&D because I can kind of understand like the function of some of the moves a little bit more.
Yeah.
Avatar Legends is a lot simpler. But there was one tip I saw that was really cool of like there's a move in Avatar Legends that's kind of like a perception check. And I was looking up just advice on running this game, and one of the things someone said on the subreddit was like, the life hack here is that this move, which I think is called assess the situation or something like that. That is not where you say, here are the things you see. That is where the player tells you what they're looking for and you invent those things.
Oh.
So if someone walks in and they're like, I want to assess the situation and find an escape route, it's like, okay, there's an escape route. Like that, whether or not it existed before, it exists now, and I'm going to tell them what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like D&D is obviously a little more like concrete than that. But like the idea that someone would make a perception check and be like, can I find something to set this thing on fire? It's like, well, depending on how high you roll, you will manifest something that will be able to set something on fire.
That's cool.
And that's cool. It's exciting.
That lore of that world would also lend itself really nicely to the campaign side, because like the different benders, what they can do, their different moves. That feels like a no-brainer.
Yeah, it was. It's an interesting thing too, because it's specifically like, be a bender. You can't be the avatar. You're not allowed to be the avatar.
So valid. Yeah.
Because they're the main character, and this inherently can't have a main character.
Yeah.
Which was interesting and cool.
That's a good point.
But yeah, and but in our like one shot coming up, Ben, I feel like kind of is the main character.
A little. Everything seems to be like, oh, we saw him and we love him, so now we're following him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but it's nice because it was like completely their choice.
Yeah.
Like they're totally on board with
he's
that.
Being forced to be the main character. If anything, he's trying to avoid it, and it's forcing him in the forefront, which makes for the best kind of main character, honestly.
Yes.
No.
I'm really excited for that. I wish I could play D&D with you sometime, Haley. I feel like
sometime in the future we'll make it work. Even if I will be in the chat watching. I'm gonna put some names in that. I'm gonna be tangentially related to this campaign, and I'm just gonna cross my fingers that I can't come up with toes because that's freaking genius. But I'll come up with a fun little name. Hopefully it gets picked. But yeah, like I'm gonna look into this a lot more and try to talk to my friends about it, because another thing that happened recently, which is the last thing I want to chat about today, which is we were playing. I bought this game called Not Enough Mana. Have you ever played this game? It's a board game. It's like a drinking board game. I have it with me. I'm showing it on screen here. I had to pre-order it. It took months to get here, and it's so fun. I really love it. And it's kind of like It's like I turned it into more of a D&D thing than it probably intended. Like there was more role playing that I forced on them, because I'm trying to trickle into their brains. Like, isn't it fun to play pretend with your friend Haley to see if they like it? But honestly, 10 out of 10. I love this board game. I'll just do a quick review, but essentially it is a drinking game. So, if you don't drink, then maybe it wouldn't be the one for you. Or you could just not drink alcoholic drinks, but it kind of is sort of built around that. So maybe I wouldn't suggest it then otherwise. But you have your HP, these little gems, and then your mana, these little blue gems. They're so crunchy. Let me hold them back up to the screen. I just want to bite these. Oh, they're like, my room's kind of blue right now, so you can't really see. They're just like nice little gems. And then you have all these cards, and there's different things that happen with the cards. So you'll always have 5 in your hand. You're either going to get spells to cast on other people or yourself, because it might be like a healing spell or a protection spell or something. There's also event cards. So that's when as soon as you get an event card, you have to like actually read it out, and it affects everyone in the room. And then you leave it up, and it just keeps going on. So this one, until the next event is drawn, all damage also forces victims to lose the same amount of mana. So it changes the way in which maybe you stop attacking for a few rounds and everyone's nervous and other stuff starts happening. So there's a lot of cool stuff like that. There's curses. So any wizard boarding an odd month lose 3 things, like just random stuff will happen. And then there's artifacts, which you can use that just then last the entire campaign, ? As well. So it'll be like, oh, I now permanently take 1 less damage from fire spells. And, that'll just get cast and you put it aside. So the drinking element of it is you start the game with 10 little rubies. And then for every drink, so at the start, you kind of have to talk to your friends and say, what is a drink? So we decided it was just like a really solid big swig of beer / cider, which is what we all were drinking. And it couldn't just be a little sippy. It had to be like a good gulp. And then you get 3 mana for every gulp. And you can just drink and get your mana whenever. Like, you're supposed to just constantly have a big, huge influx of mana. And there's enough of these that there's enough of them so that that's fine. Like if someone was just absolutely chugging, you'd be fine. But what's fun is sometimes an event card gets drawn that punishes you for having a ton of mana. So my friend Michael was like absolutely chugging. He had so much mana, he thought he was a god. And then we got an event card that was like, for every 5 mana, you lose a health. And he was like, oh, and he lost like half his health just right away. We were like, haha, because he was just like trying to hoard all the crystals. And then like a bunch of really fun stuff like that. And it ended up being just my friend Kyle and I were the last 2 wizards. And I was really surprised by how, you know, you'd think like only so many things could happen, but stuff kept happening that was like, oh, like I would cast something on him and he could redirect it back to me. But then I also had a redirection spell, which like doubled the damage. It had like a modifier thing. So it was like, back at you also. And the entire room was like, oh, and it just like made for a really fun time. And the D&D kind of element that I infused into it is that we all had to have wizard names and we all had to have like a little wizard backstory. So I was Hook Pants. And
whoa,
yeah,
that was not what I was expecting your wizard name to be.
I was wizard. What's the name again? Sure, Mally. It's called Not Enough Mana, and I just bought it online. I've never seen it in a store, even at like a local. Like I have board game stores in my city, and I've never seen it. It's only was sold online. I had to pre-order it. I was Hook Pants. My back lore is that I really like to dance, but I'm awful at it. And there was something else. I had something. Well, my friend Michael was named Saffron. He was really snooty. He thought he was like the best wizard ever. Like hence why him hoarding all the mana like kind of made sense. He's like, I have so much magic. We're like, Saffron, you're an asshole. And like we're all hating on Saffron. My friend Kyle was Obsidian, who was just like a really kind of like a legendary wizard who didn't talk a lot. So we're all a little scared of him. Kind of was what ended up happening. Like he just kept always rebuking spells and stuff. We're like, Obsidian's so powerful. I said, oh, wow, it's amazing. And then my sister was named Merrick. But then we learned later that my friend just gave her that name. Like she's like, what's a good name? And Michael was like, Merrick. And then we realized he just was watching Yu-Gi-Oh right now, and I guess Merrick's a character in Yu-Gi-Oh, and he just came up with that. But Merrick really hated Hook Pants. That was in the lore. And I think Hook Pants had a crush on Saffron, but Saffron everyone hated Hook Pants. It was kind of the energy. So it was kind of like that. This is totally not part of the game.
Did Hook Pants deserve it?
Yeah, Hook Pants was kind of just like the kid who talks really loud in class is like, will yell a joke and waits for people to laugh and looks around smiling and no one laughs. Like that was Hook Pants energy. Like just like annoying, never gets invited to the wizard parties, somehow ended up here. And everyone's like, oh, Hook Pants is here. That was his energy. So yeah, you don't have to come up with characters. I highly recommend it. Made it 10 times more fun. And then we put on Bardcore, which is like actual songs, but just like you're in a tavern. So our favorite one was a Bardcore version of Pumped Up Kicks. And it was all you Mary Ruths with your buckskin boots, you better run faster than my bow. And it was like a woman singing it like in a really nice way with like all these little flutes and stuff in the background. And we got really into it. And I was kind of trying to secretly like make them learn that isn't this fun and coax them into D&D. But it was really fun.
I'm sold on the game, and also if I was playing it, yeah, I don't know. They should play D&D with you. Tell them I said that.
I will. I'll tell them. I think my sister's the hardest to convince because, you know, I know she likes games. She just like never gets targeted at, like, unlike me growing up with them a lot more. Like even now, she'll text me and just be like, "What are good games?" Like, you know, she just isn't that in that bubble. But then I'll say, try Unraveled, try Limbo, try this. And she plays them all and she loves them. Like just she really likes side-scroller platforms. She likes Fortnite. And I have to like kind of lead her through the path of nerdom and be like, you'd like this. And she's like, okay. And then she disappears and comes back. She's like, I like that. What's another one? Like, she's like, more. But she never searches it out herself. So I think I'd have to precariously lead her into this path, which I think I did because she really liked this game. And she even this week was like, can we play the wizard game this weekend? I was like, yep. 100%.
Good.
Yeah. But yeah, and someone else in the chat, not weird or totally, like a lot of drinking games can be kind of trashy. Like, you know, all those apps on your phone that's like essentially grope your friend or drink twice. And I'm like, this sucks. Like, why?
And that's the name of the app. it's Friend Groper, and you're
Friend
like, everyone
Groper.
loves playing Friend Groper.
It's just like gross. Like
Yeah,
like Piccolo comes to mind. Like there's like a really naughty version of Piccolo. My friends and I were at a cottage once playing it. We're like, this is disgusting. It wants us all to like just assault one another. Ugh. But
yeah,
this one, the drinking is centered around like card deck building and like have and you don't have to drink copious amounts to do well. Like if anything, sometimes it punishes you for drinking too much, which I feel like drinking games don't normally do, right? It's usually whoever drinks the most will
yeah.
win. But that one moment, that was the moment that really stuck out, is when Michael got punished for how much mana he had because he'd been drinking too much. And we're like, you dumb wizard, your hubris, sir.
You dumb
And
wizard.
he got knocked out like really early because of that. And the next time we
Wow.
play, I bet he'll take it a bit slower and make sure. And then there was another time where you got more points the more mana you had. So that's
Mhm.
when Saffron was really sitting high and mighty, and then that card came on. Yeah. Yeah, good point. I do feel like it's not about just drinking. Drinking is almost just like a mechanic of this game,
Yeah,
which is cool.
yeah.
I like that. Oh my god, so much D&D talk. I love it. Any final thoughts, Charles? Have you ever been to Minneapolis before?
No, I was gonna mention that. I don't know how much like time we have. I don't know if you have like a
No.
hard out or anything.
I don't have a hard out. We can chat about it for a sec.
I've never flown on a plane by myself.
You
before.
mentioned that in the session 0. How do you feel about that? Is it
I've-
like an anxiety thing, or what do you think?
I don't like airports.
I hate airports.
This is also the first time because I'm part-time at Game Informer, so I'm never the one they send on trips or anything. So this is my first business travel ever. And I am glad this is happening because it's like a kind of like a tutorial level before I do SGF in the summer.
Oh yeah.
So I'm doing this, and it's like I'm in a place lots of people know the area, and also I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna meet my Game Informer coworkers for the first time. That's cool.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, I don't think I've ever been to Minneapolis before. So were you a GI intern? Am I right about that?
Back in 2016 though, so almost a decade ago. Well, time. But
Wow.
yeah, that's where I met Blake and Leo.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're from Canada, so you had to move there?
I moved there, yeah, for like 5 months? 4 months?
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you like it?
I loved Minneapolis. If there was a place to pick in the US, I would pick Minneapolis to live there. It's very fun. I lived like kind of right in the middle between Minneapolis and St. Paul. And what I really like about Minneapolis was the transportation. It has this monorail system that goes through the entire city that I just bought this pass and I just got to ride that train everywhere. It took me back when Game Informer, the offices used to be kind of downtown by the Mississippi River. I know they've since moved from there, but I would just get on the train. It was like 2 minutes from my apartment. And then I would get out and it was like a 2-minute walk from there. And I was like, perfect. And I just got to read on the train and hang out in the train. I was like, that's awesome. I don't have to, the train was AC'd. There were big seats. You got to look out the window and go over the river underneath the bridge. I just remember all of it being very like, it was like you're saying, like tutorial level move to a new city. Like I was,
Yeah.
And that was my first time moving to live somewhere besides my hometown too. I'd never done that before. So I'd lived in Halifax my entire life. And then, I got that internship. I was like, I have to go. That's so spunky. But like, ooh, I'm scared. Like, this is nerve wracking. Also to like get an apartment and not even be able to look at it before you arrive. I remember the anxiety in my belly of like, what if I get to my apartment and it just absolutely sucks? And my roommates are awful and I hate it because I had 3 roommates when I lived in Minneapolis. But then they all went home for the summer. So I kind of lived alone, which was nice.
Oh, sick.
But also kind of lonely because like you come home from work and there's nothing to do. But so I played all the Uncharted games in like 3 weeks. That was fun. There was some
I did that once.
Did you? It's fun to do. That's a good series to just pump out in a week.
Yeah.
but it's a very nice city. It's a really nice city. It's so Canadian coded. Like as a Canadian coming there, you can tell that they're right pushed up against us because everyone's so polite and nice. And I've
Mm.
been to other cities in the U.S. and they're fine, but people are just kind of living their life. It's so fair. But there is a Minnesotan charm. Like people will hold the door and be like, "There you go," and I'm like, "Thank you, you're cute." Like it's just kind of nice.
Have you ever been to New York?
Yep, a few times.
Yeah. My mom's family lives in New York, so we go there like, or I haven't. We don't do it regularly now because I'm like graduated and stuff. We would go there twice a year.
Yeah.
And the New York vibe is like, at least compared to Ohio, so different. Just in that like, in Ohio, everyone always apologizes and is like, "Thank you," and like holds open the door and like
Yeah.
acknowledges people. And like in New York, everyone is so in their own mind, or like it's polite there to not bother anyone,
Yeah.
as opposed to like talking about it. So just like a thing of someone will hold the door open for me in Ohio, and I'll be like, "Thanks," and they'll be like, "Yep," and then they'll just walk in, and that's how it goes. In New York, like I'll open the door, someone just like walk through, and like there's no words exchanged. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine.
I know. I feel really odd when I'm in locations where that's the social norm is to like be like
Mhm.
that because my brain will still be like, I'll say you're welcome even before they say thank you. I'm like, whoops. Like now I'm the asshole.
Yeah.
Florida is another one for me. Like, no offense to anyone from Florida. I used to go there twice a year growing up, every year for decades and decades. I do not like Florida. People in Florida.
Mm.
Well, it's like I remember when I first got my license, I was like driving there and I was like, oh yeah, like I guess I can drive my nan to the grocery store or whatever. And while we were there, like she's like, make sure not to honk. And I was like, why? She's like, there's a lot of drive-by, people will shoot you. And I was like, what? I was like, that's just like the energy of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's like, don't honk because people do drive-by shootings like every day. I was like, I don't feel safe. This is scary. I'm like, Nan, why do you live here? It's scary. But like Disney's chill.
Disney's chill.
And like
Yeah,
there's
also-
parts of Florida, like Florida's beautiful, like the weather's amazing, like whatever. But there's just the billboards have really, really not chill stuff on them, and like there's this like overarching uncomfiness about like, do people hate me here? Like, so I'm a woman, maybe. Like I don't know. It's just like a weird vibe. Some certain places in Florida.
I was gonna say, from what I know about people that live in Florida, you being like, I don't like Florida at all, they'd be like, yeah, that's fair.
I know,
get
and
it.
yeah, every person I've ever met that's from Florida is like valid, like immediately
Yeah,
valid.
absolutely.
They also
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, I always feel bad like hating on a location because so many people grew up there. They're like, that's where I'm from, and I couldn't help it. But like,
Yeah.
Florida.
I feel I'm like defensive about Cincinnati in particular.
Yeah.
Not because people like to hate on Ohio as a unit, which I'm like, yeah, I guess it's a hard thing because
That was
like,
a whole meme, right? Like
yeah,
Ohio
it
man.
is. Yeah, it's like of Ohio, there's generally speaking, there's Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, like the three like biggest cities.
Yeah.
And I feel like those places are like just and the areas around them have like a completely different vibe than like, you know, the eastern parts of Ohio. Hugo in the chat says Cincy's better. It's true. Cincy's the best one.
Cincy,
And I can
that's
say that
such a
because I've
fun
never lived
nickname for
anywhere
a
else.
city. I love
Oh
that
yeah,
more than anything else.
Cincy. It's great. And I mean, okay, Ohio, Cincinnati is its biggest meme relevance is this is where Harambe lived
Oh no.
back in the day. But then this is like a conspiracy theory I have. It's not really a conspiracy theory. There's a hippo named Fiona the hippo. She was a baby hippo back when she was a baby, as most babies are.
Cute.
And Fiona the hippo was like such an intense marketing push, and I'm pretty sure it was like Harambe happened and Cincinnati was like, oh, this is a bad deal, hey, we got a baby hippo. And like, if you ever come to Cincinnati and you go into like a gift shop,
Yeah.
There's like Fiona merch, like I could buy dozens of Fiona the hippo t-shirts and baseball hats and
What?
whatever. She's like a symbol of the city unofficially. It's very weird, but like she's a hippo. I love hippos.
Of all animals, a hippo. I kind of love that for Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think she was like a like premature birth maybe. So there was like kind of a narrative there of like, oh yeah, I'm saying the same thing, and Hugo is immediately saying it in the chat. Yeah, so it was a like a scary moment at first of like, is this hippo going to pull through? We love seeing this cute baby hippo persevering, and then became a thing of like, she did, she's great, and now she's so big, hippos, man.
Oh
But yeah,
wow, that's so. And they definitely were just like pushing that the hippo agenda to cover up for the
yeah.
baby.
I mean,
Hugo.
that's my
That's the
headcanon.
conspiracy
Um,
angle.
yeah, but also we put chili on spaghetti here.
Oh, that sounds
Um,
awesome.
that upsets a lot of people, and I'm like, it's meat sauce. It's
It's
just
meat
meat sauce with different
sauce.
flavors in it,
I
and that's
genuinely have
fine.
always said that. My aunt makes chili every Christmas Eve. I'm like, this is meat sauce in a bowl, but I'll eat it. Like,
Yeah,
why are we pretending it's its whole separate meal? I should have pasta under this.
exactly. It's yeah, it's great. It's good. And I guess the other complaint about that is it's like some Greek guy. When he came to Ohio, he made his version of chili, so it's not even like a traditional chili that you put on spaghetti usually. But it's different and it's good, and I love it. It'd be like if someone was like, "Oh, you're from Chicago, you probably eat Chicago hot dogs once a week," and like
Yeah.
that's probably not true. But I'm from Cincinnati. I do eat Cincinnati style chili like once a
Nice.
week. Like
My
it's a
thing where
very
I'm
big
from
part
is
of my diet.
Donairs. I don't know if have you ever heard of a Donair before?
Donair, no.
They're really good. It's just like this shawarma meat, tomatoes, onions on a pita that's steamed, and then Donair sauce, which is like it is just my city if it was a food. Like I think it had to have been invented in Halifax. If not, I feel crazy. But it's
How do you spell it?
Donair.
Okay.
Donair. And it's kind of just like shawarma adjacent, but it's the sauce is this white, not great looking texturally speaking.
Yeah,
I can tell you're probably googling it. Looks like a
I
certain
didn't want
bodily
to
fluid
say
that's
anything.
not too appetizing looking. It's the like something about the combo with the meat. It's like a sweet sauce too, which is especially weird. Like
Oh,
it shouldn't taste good, but it really does. And like getting a donair after going downtown is just like, oh, it's a rite of passage for a Haligonian student living here.
whoa! I just looked up a recipe, and it's sweetened condensed milk, white vinegar, and garlic powder.
See, I didn't even know the recipe. I just was like, it's the
That's
sweet
wild.
white sauce. It's so good. And it's not really sold a lot of places. Like whenever I go other cities or anywhere in the world really, like you'll say, "Oh, can I have donair sauce with my, cheese fingers?" They're like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Never mind. I'll have garlic." I think it's like garlic sauce is probably the closest, but it's a lot sweeter than garlic sauce.
Yeah. Because the sweetened condensed. That's so. I like want to make this now.
It's good. It's also acquired taste. I have introduced like American friends to it, and they've been like, "Ugh, it's too sweet."
Yeah.
It's kind of like how
I get it.
Australians like Vegemite and like, just because they
Yeah.
grew up with it, even though it has a weird flavor profile.
Because people react so intensely to Cincinnati style chili, I feel like I'm much more empathetic to trying foods, and even if I don't like it, being like it's fine. Because some people are like, "Oh, I've lived in Cincinnati my whole life, and I hate Cincinnati style chili," and I'm like, "Okay, leave. I don't know. Don't be mean to me about my
Go
favorite
away.
food."
I was about to say go home, but then they just said they're from Cincinnati, so never mind. Am I
home.
crazy in thinking that just chili on pasta isn't that crazy? Like that seems pretty normal.
I don't think it is, but some people get like really appalled by it. I don't know. It's also like to me, what's crazy is like, and I still like it. Chili on a hot dog is a much more weird idea, but it's a
Yeah.
lot more of a common thing, like chili dogs.
Because of Sonic.
Sonic-
Because of the Sonic
if-
agenda.
If Sonic the Hedgehog ate chili on spaghetti, everyone would be cool.
Oh my god, what would he would say, "I gotta have my Cincinnati chili," and then run away really fast. Well, because he always goes, "Chili dogs, yeah." What do you say?
I gotta have my Cincinnati Sonic the
Cincy chili.
Hedgehog. Woohoo.
Gotta go fast, Cincy chili. Yummy. And that's also I think the problem with your premise right there is you can't eat pasta in a fast, fun way. Like a hot dog, you're like schlomp. Like he just in the cartoons, he just shoves it in his mouth and he runs away.
Uh-huh.
Would he be twirling that Cincinnati chili with a
mean,
fork?
That could be a fun, like a quick slurp. Like if I was making a comic, like he like puts his face on and goes like.
But then he's got to
and
get
like
a
slurps it all
bowl.
up in one thing. Yeah,
Where's he putting the bowl
I,
when he runs away? He puts it down and then runs.
I think he throws it, goes up in the air, but it never comes down. You know, that kind
Sonic
of
doesn't
thing.
litter. He's notoriously anti-litter. I've heard.
Maybe he would run to a kitchen and put it in this. He's really fast. I don't know. He's got time. You
He's
know.
got time, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a notoriously funny thing that someone online was like, "Do you think when Sonic goes to the bathroom, he just does it really fast while he's running?" I bet he does. I bet he does. He runs down a whole highway in like 8 seconds. Like, you don't think he just like takes a crap on the way?
Well,
like
just it's a thing to me where it's like he's fast enough he can just go to the bathroom.
No, but he doesn't
Like,
even want to sit. He's like he just is going so fast. He just takes a dump and then he's still running.
Maybe he could do like a drive-by toilet. You know,
Oh, but would he want to aim?
my mind the way it is it's like it's more, it's less of an inconvenience for him than it is for any other person, right? Like if he can do it so quickly, I don't know.
I don't think it's about convenience. I think it's about his constant desire to go fast and how even slowing down a bit to do mundane stuff like slurping sketty or going to the bathroom would just be uncharacteristically slow.
I think if I'm being honest, it just upsets me enough that I'm trying to invent reasons why he wouldn't.
If I'm being honest, you upset me, Haley, and I don't like your question.
I think you're probably right. I think like Tails goes to the bathroom.
Oh, but he would get it all in his tails. See, I think Tails sits.
Well, he can lift his tails up.
Yeah, but I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, no, I'm saying he stops and he goes to the like Tails takes his time. You know? Yeah.
Tails. What about Knuckles?
Knuckles punches a hole in the ground and then does it in there and then covers it up.
It takes like 2 hours to go to the bathroom.
And then he flies away.
Fantastic. And Amy never poops. Amy's never pooped her whole life.
No, she's immune. That's the thing of like Sonic is like the fastest. Tails has his cool tails. Yeah. Knuckles can fly. And then it's always like Amy has a hammer, but it's like that's not an ability, you know? She was just given a weapon. Yeah. Her superpower is she never poops.
Yes. That's a perfect superpower. Like Rich asked, what about Rouge the Bat? She pretends she's like Amy and can't poop, but she has the wickedest craps of all. And she just doesn't talk about it. Like even worse than Knuckles. Yeah. Bats have really gross poop and they poop all over themselves. I remember Kyle talking about that on one of the Min-Max episodes. Like bats just crap all over themselves. Like
guano it's like toxic. It's like a thing of like you can't get too close to it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, honestly, Rouge probably uses it for her nefarious schemes in some way.
Oh, like she could plant hers and then say it was Sonic going fast and leaving it in like important areas. Like when he's running by the Victory Bell, she'll pretend that he crapped on the Victory Bell and like throw on it, and America gets all mad. That'd be how it would. Look, we're like D&D imagining a scenario. There's a new Sonic story about Rouge throwing her crap to get Sonic in trouble.
I would do a Sonic homebrew Sonic D&D 5e campaign.
Well, that is just Sonic. Like literally every drawing on the internet is just people's Sonic characters as themselves. Like people are already doing the work.
That's true.
Like a character creator screen of just Sonic characters. Sonic Sonas, exactly. I like how I was like, do you have anything more to think about? And then we talked about a bunch of stuff, including whether all the Sonic characters poop.
I didn't even bring up Sonic and the Black Knight. That's a recurring bit on the Game Informer show for some reason. I just always bring that game up.
That game's hilarious.
It's like, it's my favorite one. I say, it's kind of ironic. I just like the idea of it so much.
It was such a Wii era, right? Like the Wii games.
It is.
It's like I will love any kind of game that came out in that time frame just because it was on the Wii. I'm very forgiving.
It's so goofy. I also have a thing of like sometimes people will hate on like motion controls or like DS like stylus stuff, and I was like, well, I was 7 and I figured it out because that was the only video games I had. So maybe you just need to get good, okay?
Exactly. The only thing I don't forgive is the 3DS. Like looking at their 3D functionality made me want to vom. I never turned it on ever.
Yeah, but that's like rarely like vital gameplay mechanic.
It never
also.
was. It was just.
Yeah.
It was just you turn it on for 1 second to show your mom, and then you turn it off and never use it ever again.
yeah.
Let's be real. Oh, Neil says, "Damn it, we went through this last time. Bats do not poop and pee on themselves. They poop and pee when they're flying or when they're right side up!" Exclamation point. Sorry, Neil. Thank you for clarifying. I thought bats were really. So does that change our rouge thought? I guess,
it's still deadly gross poop. It's just not on themselves, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's a clarification.
The bare
it's
minimum.
still a chemical weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's another titular episode of Bonus Pod, the companion podcast of the MinMax Show. Thank you so much, Charles, for joining me today. Let me go over quickly. There's some fun New Show Plus options this week that I'm really looking forward to. And I'm curious to see which one wins. Let me see what the votes are at currently. So one of them, last week, Leo and I played the Playboy Mansion PS2 game, which we tried to turn into a feminist playthrough. We tried our best. So this time around, we'd say Party at the Mansion. We're going to try to play the Haunted Mansion PS2 game. So the one that would be based on like the Eddie Murphy version of the movie. Though I am told that Eddie Murphy's not in this game. I'm sure they couldn't get his licensing. So that won't be happening. Content of Youth. That is a fun one where we're going to try to edit an old MinMax video to be appealing to the, kind of like the hyperactive... having 2-3 different screens playing different stuff at different times to try to keep your attention. Very TikTok coded. Try to see if we can edit some MinMax content about that. Be very curious to hear your take on that editing style, Charles. Are you pro or against the Family Guy episodes on the bottom, streamers, Subway Rails, whatever that game is on the top?
It gives me a deep discomfort about the state of the world.
Me too. It makes me really nervous for children. I'm like, that isn't even a joke.
The worst thing that happens is when like one of those AI voices reading an Ask Reddit post comes up on my page, and like the video is Subway Surfers or like just Minecraft parkour, and I'm like, look, I want to know the tea. I want to know the tea of what these people are saying, but I don't want to watch this awful format.
It's like, and you know that it's all made up anyways. Probably the person who made the post just wrote up a fake Reddit post, and it's just like whatever's the most interesting thing to read. But it'll be like, this person never realized their wife was doing this until, and then it starts the video. I'm like, what was it? And I watched the whole thing.
What was it?
I fear for our children. So we're gonna make content like that to prey on children. Prey on children. That sounds bad. Prey on attention of people and try to steal as much attention as we can. Last of Us multiplayer lives, that would be Leo and Huber playing The Last of Us Remastered Factions, which I in particular would be pretty excited about. I would love to see them play that. But currently in first place, we have Kelsey's console repair. And that is Kelsey Lewin fixing old game consoles, which, I mean, I had a sneaking suspicion that was going to be running in the front.
Yeah.
So as of right now, on May 6th, we've got Kelsey's in the lead. And if you want to vote on that, you can go to minmax.com/Patreon. Choose a tier and vote on which one you want to see this week. There are some great choices. And and then you can check out this week's MinMax show coming up in a couple days, where Charles will be live in studio in Minneapolis. Weird. You'll love it. Cool. You'll love Minneapolis. And the Minneapolis airport's also very nice, very chill, not stressful. Everything's kind of in one place. Makes sense. I liked it there. I don't like the California airports. The California airports are like big airports. That I got a little bit stressed out, but I just realized as I said that you're also going to California soon, so I don't want to say that's also what I'm ruining.
I've been to LAX before, I think.
Okay.
So I at least have that. Like it's a place I've technically visited twice, but yeah.
Is Summer Games Fest in San Francisco or LA?
I think it's in LA.
I think you're right. Yeah. At least you can sing that Miley Cyrus song when you
Dude, I literally every time
take a little Snapchat and sing it.
It's the only thing I think of. I'm like, I hope that if I was a pilot, every time I landed at LAX, I would play "Party in the USA" over the
Oh,
speakers.
over the speakers, and you would be the best
Everyone would
pilot.
just have to deal with it. Yeah.
More pilots should do that. Anytime you land in a place that has a song, you have to play that song on the speaker.
I don't want to derail this anymore, but I am going to.
Do it.
The lyric there, hopped off the plane at LAX. Is it with a dream in my heart again?
With a dream
Or is
and
it-
my cardigan.
Okay. I always flip between those two because I think dream in my heart again makes a little more sense
That
than
is
dream
nice.
and my
I actually
cardigan.
low-key kind of like
Um,
that better, but I think she was going for like, she doesn't even have luggage. She's just here with her little
Okay,
sweater. Her little sweater and her dream to be a star. But I mean, she was already a star at that point when she wrote that song, so I don't know what she's
She was.
talking about. But if you're not holding a cardigan as you get off a plane at LAX, you're doing something wrong. Bring a cardigan.
My version is I'll get there and be like, I hop off the plane at LAX. I'ma be Charles Hart again.
Perfect.
That's my version.
That even is nice, like tempo wise and everything. All the syllables fit. That sounded perfect.
I'll sing that over the intercom as a pilot.
You can do if you you can become a pilot to just do that one
Just
bit
for the bit.
and quit.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I'm sure if you record that, Ben, that's gonna be all over social. Ben would gobble that crud up. He'd be posting that. So you should keep
Okay.
keep that in the bank.
I have to do it.
No, you'll have to do it. And yeah, this upcoming episode, I'm sure Charles will be talking Hades too. And I think Leo really wanted to talk about Prey, which is fun. So I'm curious to hear what he has to say about Prey. He's been playing that. Yeah. And then the D&D episode on Thursday. That'll be so exciting. I cannot wait. I'll be watching that live. And you all should be too. So mark your calendars on Thursday for the live D&D session. Charles, Sarah, Ben, and Leo in person.
And send in some names.
Yes. Send in some names. The final stream in the old MinMax studio. Because Ben is moving. I think it is the last stream. I hope now we don't book a stream on Friday.
I think he said so, yeah.
I think he said so. So Ben's moving, so there won't be a lot of in-person content for at least a little bit. So this will be the last dose, so make sure you watch on Thursday. Thank you so much, Charles, for hanging out with me.
Thanks for having me.
The conversations flow so naturally with you. We covered so many topics. How am I going to message Ben at the end of this? He's going to be like, what did you guys talk about? I'll be like, Sonic pooping. If we were pilots, what we would play on the intercoms.
Mostly that.
Just those two
some
things.
D&D. It was funny because I was like, I mean, we can talk. You were like, if there's anything else you want to talk about, let me know. And I was like, we can talk like maybe about Hades 2, like if we need to, but I'll probably just talk about D&D the whole time. And then that did not happen.
Yeah, no, and like, bonus pod is like, we try to say an hour, but like,
Mhm.
if the vibes are there, keep chatting, and the vibes were there. So we're at an hour and a half today. Thank you all listeners for hanging out with us. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and thanks again, Charles. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody on Twitch. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.